scientist. What we have here today is my good friend Taylor Romero. Now, Taylor, hey buddy.
Hi.
Taylor has, in fact, I'm not really going to tell you that much about him because I'm pretty sure you're going to tell us a whole bunch. But Taylor does some of the coolest UX data and dev work that I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
You got, buddy.
Yeah, I will. Cool.
All right, round of applause for Taylor.
Woo! Here, make sure. Did the mic pick all those applause up? We gotta get. We can always go and add sound effects later too. As Nick was saying, this is kind of like the story of my life over the past 4 years. And so to ramp you up on where it started, my wife and I were walking down Cherry Creek River down Spear Boulevard, and my wife at the time was working for a digital agency downtown. I'm doing skunkworks at Match.com and some other places, and my wife turns to me and she goes, "Do you know what, Tay? After seeing how much you like technology, decided I don't really like technology that much. And I kind of want to get out of technology." And I was like, "Okay, what's that mean?" And she goes, "I want to open a boutique." And I was like, "Well, shit. Okay, let's do it." So we did what you're supposed to do. We went and wrote a business plan and kind of went and talked to friends and family. And so we got the business plan done. I went to my parents, her parents, right? Everybody we can to just kind of build support for this. Because one thing that I've learned is that like, you can't do anything solo. You can drive an effort, but you need support and buy-in from friends, from family, from people around you. And so we went and we showed our family and they looked at our business plan and went, "What the hell do you know about retail?" And I was like, "Thanks, Mom." About as much as I knew about anything else, and I laid out a bunch of stories of like learning as I go, and she's like, "All right, fine, you'll be fine." So we take our business plan, we take it to the bank, and the bank's like, "This is really cool. If you guys could show 2 to 3 years of revenue, we'll give you a loan." And I was like, "I need a loan because I don't have 2 to 3 years of revenue." And they're like, "Sorry, that's not how loans work." And I was like, "Hold on a second." Like, I'm a millennial, right? So either I don't know how loans work or the bank doesn't know how loans work. Well, I'm pretty sure it's the bank's fault. Like, you're supposed to get a loan when you need money, not when you have money. But banks haven't gotten it yet. So we ended up selling our condo, maxing our credit cards, selling everything that we owned to open Spruce on 44th and Tennyson. And what has now become the most technologically dense boutique on the planet. We have you guys familiar with Raspberry Pis? The little microcontrollers? We have a Raspberry Pi for every like 10 feet or something. And I'm gonna take you through the stuff that we built while we were running the shop, from IoT to digital stuff to physical stuff to pretty much everything, and then the stories around why we built it. Because what we had pictured was this head-to-toe experience where guys could come in, there's a barber shop on this side, a clothing store on this side, and the guy could come in, book an appointment, have a beer, get a haircut or a shave while they're sitting there, have a personal shopper picking out clothes, so you could get up, go to the dressing room, try your stuff on. And we really focused on creating this full holistic experience. And it was really interesting because the biggest lessons that we ended up learning were not when we opened, but right around when people started coming back a second time. And I don't know if you guys have ever built something that somebody's paid money for, but it is a very humbling experience. And to have people now coming back again, and have them come in and be like, "Oh, hey, Taylor," and me be like, "Hey, bro." You know, you're like, so there's a lot of lessons there around the relationships that were formed in this place where we use technology to really empower the team to build better relationships. And it sounds very contrarian, but we do a lot to hide technology in the shop. So most people, if you're to Google us right now, we're like a 5.0 on Yelp, a 4.9 on Facebook, a 4.7 on Google. We're working on that one. But very few people mention the technology. In fact, the only people who mention the technology are technologists. Everybody else is like, "This place is amazing, you guys did great, you knew exactly what I wanted." I'm like, "Yeah, because it's all being fed to my watch in real time when you enter." They don't need to know that though. So picture this. This thing's up and running. We're starting to work out the kinks. And Out of nowhere, Techstars, you guys heard of Techstars, the startup accelerator based out of Boulder? They put out applications for the first ever retail accelerator, which meant they partnered with Target in Minneapolis to host technology companies that built retail technology. And so I fill out the form, and part of the form was submit a 60-second video of the things of your product. And so at the time, I wasn't thinking, nobody on our team was thinking we had a product. We were thinking we had built a bunch of technology that enables an amazing solution, but the requirements were select a 60-second video to upload with your application. So this was the video that we filmed and submitted.
Hey guys, I know you said 1-minute product video. The problem is we have the entire retail ecosystem. Starts our internet connected sign. Anytime someone books an appointment, does a little light show. We have our pedestrian tracker. This allows me to draw lines over live video feeds, like the first down line in a football game. Anybody who crosses the line gets tallied. We used to track people as they come into the shop so we can see the ROI on our physical signage. We've got our internet connected menu of services. The blue LEDs next to each service is the real-time wait time. We've got our totally custom-built shoe display with an integrated touch screen. Tap on the shoe that you want, name it, vendor, price, size and quantity in stock. Tap the size that you want. Would you like some a size 10 to try on? And we'll be done. Everybody then gets a notification on their phone with all the details of the shoe so they can run and grab it for you. We have our missed appointment button. Anytime someone comes in to book an appointment, but we don't have enough people staff, you hit the button. Then in the back end, we scatter plot that, and now we can get an idea of the days when we're missing the most business.
So picture this. We're going through the application process. Normally, either Techstars invites you, never been on that list, or you go through a series of interviews, like 2 to 4 interviews before they make their decision. We got through to 15 interviews. Because the first interview, they're like, okay, this is really cool. Question, are you a retail company or are you a technology company? And obviously my response was yes. Like, I don't know how to separate the two, really. It's all just the tech belongs in retail. Retail needs this tech just like it needs wood flooring or walls and roofs that keep out bad weather. It's all technology, just this happens to be information technology, and information technology people haven't figured out how to use yet. And it's a perfect example of fucking use whatever it is you're designing or building. If you do not use it daily, the person with your exact same skill set who does use it daily will come up with ways to use it that you never would have thought of. And what it has resulted for us, and I'm going to start going through each of these in detail, is someone, and we give a tour of the shop on Fridays, so if you want to come in on Friday, I can show you all in actual real life with your real eyes and hands. But what you're going to see is that everything was so well thought through, not because we sat down and thought through it, but because we put something out and we listened. And we just took feedback. And something else that's interesting, so I have a theory on feedback. It's asking someone for feedback is like asking them to lie to you. When's the last time you've gone to a restaurant, food was bad, server comes up, how is it? And you go, it's good. You still leave a 20% tip, and you never give them that feedback. I never ask anybody directly for feedback. It is literally, you want someone to become a product expert, ask them for feedback on your product. You want someone to become a design expert, ask them for feedback on your design. You want to see how someone's going to do it, put it in front of them, shut the fuck up, and watch. And so picture this, being able to build stuff in a retail environment and just sitting back and being like, oh, did not expect that to happen. And then pulling out the laptop, tweaking it, pushing it, and watching again. Everything here was driven from actual usage and feedback, not even feedback given directly, but feedback we collected by just observing and watching people get frustrated, watching people get excited, and then building on that, but never actually directly asking someone for feedback. Actually, so before we get into this, so last interview at Techstars, and it's us, Spruce, it's me and my wife at the time. We don't have a technology team. We don't even have a technology company. And oh, Tim Bach should arrive at any moment. I swear I put on D&D. So I'm on a flight to Florida for something. The final call with Techstars and the Target executives is while I'm at a layover at some airport. So here's the format. It's a 4-minute call. and the 4-minute call starts off with the first minute playing that video. Then the second minute, you're supposed to talk about your product and its traction, how far you've made it. The third minute, you're supposed to talk about the team that you've built and who's helping you run it. And the fourth one is to talk about your plans with the accelerator. And I was like, I don't even know if we're a fucking technology company yet. So played this video, which stops with all the things we did not cover, cut onto the line with the target execs, and the phone is dead silent, just dead. And someone at Target goes, so what's your product? I was like, look, bro, I know what you know now. I just filmed it all. This is it. He's like, so then I spoke for the full 4 minutes just on the people that helped build this stuff. We had a guy named Steven who actually at 21 is being contracted out to take homes off grid by himself. Like people who can build things with their hands that are just incredible. I mean, that's how, when we built this shop, we didn't know anybody who was in construction, and we didn't know anybody who did any contract labor. Like, we just had to go and just like figure it out. And so Target was like, after the phone call, Target was like, nope, they are not getting into this accelerator. And Techstars was like, yeah, we should let them in. And it actually turned out to be a huge like turmoil in the organization about whether to let us in. Because not only were we the only non-real technology company to go in, we were the earliest stage company to ever go in, and we were the only company in the history of Techstars to go in as a boutique, as a physical store, not a technology company. Also, 2/3 through the program, we split and started our technology company and filled our pre-seed round before we filed with the Secretary of State. So it's been, in one way to say it, quite the adventure. And the office is overheating. Let me double check to make sure I got D&D on this. Nope. Okay, so we hadn't opened yet. But one thing I knew is we wanted a big epic sign out in front, just so you could see it from like the end of the block. And so the idea was, we have our logo comes, the Spruce logo comes in like 2 forms. It's got this hand-sketched version, which you can kind of see, and then a simplified version, which is lit up. So I was like, okay, what if we had a sign that looked like our logo during the day, but at night, all these in the negative space lit up. And so I designed it in Photoshop, because I don't know shit about signs. And I sent it to a sign company who's like, you clearly don't know anything about signs. And they're like, what did you send us? And I was like, well, it's a PSD, it's a Photoshop document. And they're like, you don't design signs in Photoshop? I was like, fine. So ended up going, I don't know if you guys ever remember Skype before Slack. So went onto the Skype group, this was like 4 years ago, and was like, all right, guys, we need a sign. So we actually took the design, simplified it, sent it to a laser cutter to cut the steel. The sign weighs like 150, 200 pounds. And then we went online. You guys know adafruit.com? So all your IoT goodness there, adafruit.com. The lady, her nickname is Miss Ada, I think. She's a badass. And her whole website is around just IoT things, connected anything. Well, so what we did is we took a Raspberry Pi, we kind of plopped it right here, connected it to our Wi-Fi. We took LEDs, wrapped them around each section here, about 880 LEDs. So that way, when you book an appointment, it does a little light show. And it'll transition through the rainbow here. And what's really cool is when somebody walking down the street sees it, it's like, oh, I walked by and set it off. And it was like, no, that's when someone books an appointment. And to see like them light up and like, whoa, really? So we have guests who actually come stand in front of the sign to book an appointment so they can see it. What you're not seeing here is the front of the house lights up. We have buttons that light up. We have lights in the retail area that light up, a ton of connected stuff that all kind of goes into the celebration mode whenever someone books an appointment, which is really, really fun to see and experience. And it's created a really interesting situation where once a guest knows that this happens, it becomes like the secret they share. Like, oh, did you know that this sign lights up when someone books an appointment? It kind of creates this interesting ownership around, like, if you've ever seen like an indie film that's really good or indie music that's really good, and you're like, this, I gotta show everybody, this is my band, or this is my, like, it's kind of created that type of atmosphere, which is super interesting and cool. Okay, this guy. So here's how this started. We're very much a mentor-driven organization. Long way of saying, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, so I go and ask for help. And one of the guys that I asked for help with was like, well, what's your store schedule? And we said, well, it's every day but Monday. He's like, why? And I'm like, well, because everybody else has the same schedule on the block. And he's like, well, why? I don't know. So I went and asked, and nobody could really answer why we were closed on Monday. So what we did is we pointed this out front to measure street traffic. So what's really cool about this is it's using open computer vision, which is just an open source computer vision library. That's what's detecting the human figure. Then built an app around it where these lines can be drawn in any arbitrary place, and then found a 2D collision library for games and plugged it in. So that's how I can tell when people cross over the line. And then depending on which order they cross, tells me which direction. So I've given this a label of north, so they're going this way, they're going north, and I've given this a label of south. Recently, we turned this into the doorway. So we're tracking people coming in and out. And then with point of sale integration, we have a conversion rate. Now the camera recently went down, one of like 6 things I need help with. So now check this out. You know how on a website you have a conversion rate? Like our landing page converts 3%, and then you try to change buttons and colors and verbiage to try to convert better. We do the same thing, but our tools are not colors and buttons. Our tools are words and gestures. So the team, based off this conversion rate, can try different things to get more people to convert for purchases, from different greetings to different suggestions to different promos. And so now it's a living, breathing feedback loop where everything can happen and change in real time. All of it's tracked, all of it's reported on, and then we tie our rewards and stuff to these metrics, these KPIs. So this is us testing it. So this is my wife, Becca, on the phone with me going, all right, babe, keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. I just want to get you out of frame. Okay, no, turn around. Yeah, you can turn around now. Okay, keep walking, keep walking. And then something awesome happened for anybody who's ever done test data in systems is I'm like, okay, the count's working, everything's working. And it's like, it's right here. I was like, oh my God, people, people, people. Yeah, I counted them both. Yes. And so we just kept this. I think someone comes and walks back the other way. But I'm at home, she's at the shop, little Raspberry Pi camera, and I'm like, is there anybody else? Do you see anybody else? Someone else coming? Is there? Who else is going to be here? And then, yeah, see, 2 more people, 3 people. So it's kind of shaky, iffy, but it's hitting all of them. It's counting all of them. And so then this now, again, we just turned this towards the front door, made this line look like that. And now when you walk in, you get a little tally. That gets coupled with the point of sale. And then, bam, we get our conversion rate in real time. Do you have an MVP? So you guys familiar with the concept MVP? Can anybody give me a definition? That would be the word. Oh. The definition. Yes, the minimum amount you need to build to learn. You nailed it, yeah. Double-sided sticky Velcro taping up cameras. You don't MVP much harder than that. And then if this is a Raspberry Pi, in this case, one of my friends made, just because he's a woodworker and thought it would be really cool. But this shop was built on MVPs. And then anything that worked, we matured and grew, and anything that didn't work died. This guy, this is a really cool thing. So now this is another one of those lessons that didn't come at first. So we're opening up a service-based business on the barber side. It makes sense. The first thing that people would ask when they walked in would be, hey, what's the wait time? But as crazy as it sounds, I never thought about that. So before we had this up, I mean, we still do, everything's mobile driven. And even now we're getting into wearables. And so when someone came in, I could go, and I could pull out my phone, I could swipe, I unlock it, and check wait times. It takes about 10 seconds. But I was actually doing the greeting for like a year, like physically, welcome to Spruce, how can I help you? And let me tell you, coming back to this idea of use what you build, use what you design, and use it every day, because then what happened is I went, okay, this is dumb. I'm having to check this thing 15, 20 times a day, 30 times a day for the same thing over and over and over. This is a perfect example as if I wasn't the one doing it. It would have been easy enough to be like, suck it up, that's why we pay you, right? Your front desk or your reception, like you should be looking this stuff up. It's too easy to delegate to things that could be automated when you're not doing it. And so after a while, it was like, all right, this is dumb. We need a way to answer this question where I don't have to do anything and where the guest is fully empowered and knows everything they need to know. So it's every service, price, wait time in hours and minutes. So 2 minutes, 3 hours, 57 minutes. But here's what's interesting is, well, there are 2 microcontrollers, 2 Raspberry Pis stuck. DST, do you guys know what DST is? Double-sided sticky. So you hear me say DST, you can think 2 things. 1, double-sided sticky, and 2, this guy knows what he's talking about. That was the first time when our guys were in there and like, yeah, we need some DST. And I was like, Siri, what is DST? Double-sided sticky, dang it. I need like cool words and shortcuts for other things. So here's what's super interesting. And this was a whole exercise in design. So we've recently repainted this whole thing, simplified it significantly, brought much less copy on it. Also, we've changed how wait times work. So our first iteration of wait times was hour:minutes. But if I hadn't said that, do you know what you'd say? Why the hell are you using military time to tell me when your next appointment availability is? 1,400 hours? Who does that? Well, nobody, because it was never meant to be military time. But the first thing people do when they see a number greater than 12 on there is go, oh, it's military time. Shit, no. So then we thought, okay, well, I guess to take a step back, this used to just be wait time in minutes. Do you guys know what, if I were to say the wait time is 967 minutes, what time is that today? That's like not knowing the time, right? We're like, oh, it's like 1,200 minutes. Sorry, dude, let me pull out my phone and look. So then we switched to this, as I'm thinking, yeah, this is the fix, for sure. But then everybody who saw it either thought this was military time, or if this was under 12, they didn't think like 2 hours, 18 minutes. They thought, oh, 2:18 p.m. Shit, no, not that either. So we're like, okay, what if we do this? What if, so this will be our 3rd attempt at getting just these right over a course of a year and a half. 3 tries, and the thing is the feedback trickles in so slowly that we're not doing like a focus group, sit down, tell me what you think. We're watching people do it, so it's very slow and it's unfolding. And we thought, okay, this is gonna do it for sure. What if we did number H? Remember on old school calculators, you used to write words like 6006 or whatever? And like, right? So like picture an H. We're like, oh, 4H. Like, then everyone will get it. That's what we're gonna do. Well, it turns out H is not supported in these LEDs at all. And so I sit on when I'm coding, I'm in JavaScript, maybe some other scripted language, so I'm very high level. So I like one sentence to do a lot of work. Where the lower you get in technology, the less each line of code actually does. And so you build abstractions on top of each other, so I can say send text message and not worry about the millions of lines of code that actually make it happen. Well, one of the guys on the team, Ryan, he does have a lot of low level like C and interpiler and bit, byte, code, machine, whatever. Like, I used to know all this stuff, and then what happens, you have someone on your team who's better at it, and you forget how to do all of it. So he SSHs in from Michigan, where he's living, and we're like, here's our mission. Get that damn thing to show an H. And so picture this, he's SSH'd in remotely. His only window into what's happening is me. These photos are actual photos I took and texted to him while he was coding it, because he'd have to he'd go into the source code, modify the bit masks for all the different, I don't know, things for how it determined which segments to light up, and then he'd reset and he'd go, okay, how does it look now? And I was like, okay, we got just 14. Progress. We got rid of the colon, we got rid of other minutes, so now all we need is an H. And he goes, okay, how about now? And I was like, dude, we are either one line away from an H, or we're one line away from this, whatever this is. I was like, no, man, you just made it worse. He's like, okay, I can hear him typing on their line. He's like, okay, how about now? No, why? Dude, wrong one, like wrong way. And he's like, and like none of this is supported. We didn't put a PR back to Adafruit and the people who made this. It's just like there's one place this code lives on the computers, DST'd to the back of the sign. So hopefully we don't lose it. And then he got it. That was step one. Now we got to get minutes. So we drop in minutes. Question, when you guys are writing down time of day, who's 0 pads? Like, or if you're thinking of a duration, 1 hour, 5 minutes. If you were to write that down right now, who would 0 pad minutes as a human being? Right? Stupid, no one would. Like, so we're like, okay, let's remove the 0. So the last bit of this was, bam, 8 hours, 8 minutes. This is how it works today. Now, nobody's been confused by what this means yet, but then we introduced another issue. We repainted the sign and moved all the services around. So now, one of the services has the wait time for the headshot. Have you seen that? So it's like beard trim, 5-minute wait, shave, 5-minute wait, kids cut, 13 hours or 48 hours and 27 minutes, because we do headshots also, but only on Fridays. And somehow I've got a map of all the services to the LEDs to the computer, and I got some of them wrong. So now I got to go in and fix that somehow. It's just like lining up, this ID goes with this memory address, and it's tedious as hell. So it's broken right now. And then there it is with 2-digit minutes. So if it will never get more than 2-digit minutes, and if it gets to 2-digit hours, we'll only show hours, or we run out of space. So you guys saw this in the video. I don't know if you caught what it does. So you come in, want a haircut, and we don't have enough people staffs. So the wait time is too long, and we press that button, and it scatter plots the day of the week and the time of the day that we press the button. So when we're hiring and staffing, we know when we're turning people away. And we knew we needed this pretty early on, because what was happening is like people were coming in and we were understaffed. And it was like, how do we know when to put people on and when we don't? We've got it down now, but or better at it now. So it was funny. So I called the same group of friends who we built that sign together. And I was like, all right, guys, we need to get a button. We need to connect to the internet. And then once we figure that out, I'll be able to code the rest. And one of the guys on the chat was like, have you tried Googling internet connected button? Shit, no. Turns out there's literally a product called the internet connected button by these guys. I forgot who they're called. They just recently changed names. They were Particle.io at one point. I think they changed maybe, or maybe they're still Particle. Yeah, so that was awesome. So if there's like a way you don't have to reinvent the wheel, highly recommend that. So bought the button, went and connected. Now here's what's awesome is we use Vonage for our phone, which we're actually ditching now because they're too expensive. So if someone were to call in, so Nick were to call in, and I say, sorry man, we can't seat you, and I hit that button, it'll look him up in the phone system, tie his profile to the missed appointment record, and I get a notification right to my watch. So I can call him and be like, yo dude, you couldn't get an appointment? I'll hook you up next time, or whatever it is. We call it, it's a new thing we're inventing called remote guest experience management. It's a pretty fun thing. There's what it looks like, missed appointment times. Just thicker the dot, the more people we've turned away. Super easy. Extremely powerful if you're responsible for staffing. Super powerful. Oh gosh, okay. You know how like bands have that song that like if for any Nirvana people who were around back then, Smells Like Teen Spirit was kind of like their song that they hated, but it was the one that hit, and then like they're always asked to play it, and they're like, I'm sick of this song, we've done so much better stuff. Why are people this is my Smells Like Teen Spirit. So in the dressing, so before we opened, I read a blog post that this lady had gone and judged 100 dressing rooms in New York City by the lighting. I was like, oh, I got connected lights, I could do that. So this is an iPad, and as you swipe through the photos, the lighting in the dressing room matches the composition and the color and the brightness of the photo. So you can see yourself in wheat in the outdoors. We have a boardroom we have a beach and sunset and like something else. And then at the very end, we have what we describe as party mode. And this is the feature, no joke, that everybody just loves. And so what happens, you get to this last one, and all the lights dance, like follow a pop, push, pop, push. You get this trail of lights, and it feels like a disco club. And holy cow. So Fox 31 News is getting to do a piece on us. And Heather Okamoto, she's the editor-in-chief at Denver Style magazine, had suggested that they come to Spruce. And I was like, yeah, you know, like PR is like the only damn marketing we can afford, really. We spend maybe 10, 20 bucks a month on Facebook, but like PR is like how we win as a small business, because free press, and especially with a place that's got credibility. And so Dan DeRue, I don't know if you've seen that guy, he's a goofy dude. He's walking up, Heather's walking up, and I go to shake Dan's, and I shake Heather's hand, I shake Dan's hand, and Heather's like, cool, now that we've met, let me show you the dressing rooms. And left me just standing out in front of the shop, like, and cameraman goes with him. Okay. And then we had to end the news segment actually dancing in the dressing room. And then people will come in and be like, come look at the dressing room. And I'm like, but I built so much cool stuff, you guys. Dressing rooms. Yeah, like, have you seen, like, see everything lighting up? No, wait, no, come back, come. Okay. When you're done getting dressed, like, yeah, so this is like one of those things where you, and the lesson is you don't get to pick what works. If you have an opinion about what's going to work and what's not going to work, you're going to have a really tough time in the world. But if you're okay letting the world kind of dictate what it's going to do and what it's not going to do, as an example, there's a reason wearables aren't a thing, because only one company made it about fashion. And humans like decorations on their body. They do not like big headsets that make them look like idiots. So if you're an AR designer or a VR designer, you can't get around the fact that fashion is important. You just have to accept that, and you either build what will become the best-selling watch in history, or you're going to watch someone else build the best-selling watch in history. So yeah, fine, whatever, stupid dressing room that does lights. It was like a half-evening deal that was meant as a joke for social media that was never supposed to make it into the shop. Whatever, cool. If we can fill the dressing room, let's fill the dressing room, and let's find ways to prompt people to engage in while they're dancing in the dressing room. So we work with it, not against it. So this guy was super interesting. We've gone through some iterations on this. Not only is it important that the screens that you're designing are useful in context, what is also important is the physical space and orientation and day-to-day activities of the people using it. So for example, this is DST'd to the side of our checkout stand, to the side of it. Because what happens is the team waits like this, and it's right here. And I think that's actually changed recently. We need to go back. That's what I'm telling Nick. We got a lot of work to do. It's been 2.5 years since this stuff's been updated. It needs like a whole overhaul. So if you guys are looking for some extra credit stuff, we're gonna have to work it out, because this is the hangout spot of the team's kind of changed now. And so we gotta go and move devices where the team is. And there's just a whole exercise about going in, observing, watching, and now that we have the team in the state that it's in, adapting our technology to work with them. But this is really cool because I can see who's on Wi-Fi, who's upcoming, who's sitting, but I can tap and I can get a note. And it's those notes that we tell the team. So here's what's interesting. Most salons or barbershops are going to take notes about your color formula or the length of your hair. I'll take a note that I met you at General Assembly. My wife will take a note that you're headed somewhere for your wedding or an anniversary. And let me tell you, when you walk into a shop that you've only been into a few times and someone's asking you about that level of stuff, it unlocks a whole new type of relationship that, frankly, physical businesses need, or Amazon will crush them. Because you've logged into Amazon, right? And it's been like, hey, welcome back, Nick. And you're like, oh, thank you, Amazon. You never do that, right? But what's interesting is this is an example where in a lot of things, if a human and a piece of technology and a piece of information technology specifically in this context are doing the same activity, the information technology will do it 1,000,000 times better and faster. But there are things that a human being can do that a machine will not be doing anytime soon. And that's give you warm fuzzies when you walk into a store. That means when you walk out, you're going, oh my God, that was like, this place rocks. And what's interesting about emotions is you never know why. You never know exactly why it was so great. But if you're the one studying and understanding, you get a better idea of what is really causing these feels to work to our advantage. And there are certain things that happen that kind of show you, okay, this is working. And I was walking down the retail side of the shop. It was about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, and Mansoor stood up and he walked up to me and he's like, hey, Tay, Spruce is awesome. And I was like, thank you. And at the time, have you guys heard of the phrase Minnesota goodbye? It's where you never actually separate. You're like, yeah, cool, see you. So anyway, and it's like this thing where you're like, you're never, because everybody's too polite just to be like, all right, cool, see you later. So I've been working on those so I can not be caught into a conversation that just doesn't end, because I've been being approached a lot by guests and different people who are experiencing Spruce, and like, so I'm getting bombarded and I'm just like, okay, here's what I'm gonna practice. And it's funny, I actually read an article on it that an actor wrote about how he deals with fans, where it's like, here's what you do. You say what you're gonna say, you get it all out, and then you go, it was awesome to meet you, and you do the whole like handshake, goodbye, like you make it definitive, and it's finite, discreet, we're done, peace. And so I was like, I'm gonna practice this. And so Mansoor comes up to me and he's like, oh yeah, man, cool, thank you. He's like, your shop's really cool. And I was like, all right, thanks, man, cool. Well, let me know if you need anything, I'll see you. And he goes, but what I was thinking, and I turn around like, okay. And so he starts talking more and more and more, and I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, man, thank you. I mean, it means a lot to me. So anyway, and then boom, pull back again. Like, should we just want to go get a coffee or something? Like, like, I got stuff to do, you got stuff to do. So he's like, yeah, let's go grab a cup of coffee. So we go and grab a cup of coffee, and he's like, he had just moved to Denver, and he goes, Tay, I want to tell you that Spruce makes me feel more at home. He had just moved to Denver, more at home than my home, more welcome than my work. Every time I come in, Zach knows my name, my trips to France, that I like tennis. Like, it got to the point where I started to feel guilty that I didn't know your team's name. I'm like, uh-oh, that's like unintended consequences. Like, that's not what this was meant to do, but I'm listening to him, and he goes, and we'd just gotten out of Techstars at the time. So there was a big piece in the Denver Post about us. And he goes, yeah, man, so what I did was I spent every time I entered the entire visit not saying anything, just listening to when your team called each other's names. And then when they go say, hey, Zach, I'd go, Zach, and just repeat it in my head until he learned everybody's name that worked at the shop. And then he goes, and then I read the piece in the Denver Post about Spruce Bot. And I was like, uh-oh. And he's like, at first I was disappointed, because like, I thought I was the shit. Like, I really did. I thought, like, I was just blown away. Like, I felt VIP every time. And then he goes, and then I thought about it. And I realized that you guys are using this platform and taking notes and having them delivered to you in real time, doing all this stuff, not because you're lazy or because you don't care. Like, when I'm in class, I take notes when I think something's important. You guys are doing this not because you don't care, but because you do care. And I was like, yeah, dude. Can I use that at my next talk? And he's like, yeah, totally. And then he looks at me and he goes, are you hiring? Not at the time, but we ended up getting invited to CES. A lot of things, there's this like rule of the universe. You get what you don't need. So like, before going through Techstars, nobody would pay attention to us. Now that we're in Techstars, I get invited to an accelerator every week. I don't know, I didn't make those rules. It's stupid. So like, I'm sure I could go get a loan from the bank now. Like, right? It's just this weird way the world works. Like, celebrities have garages filled with free shit. Like, the last thing that they need are people giving them more stuff, but there's this weird just phenomena of the universe that says, like, whatever you have in abundance, you will get more of. Which I'm trying to figure out how to make money that thing, but haven't figured that out. So we get into CES, was way too soon. Should not have gone. I guess for the adventure it was fun. And I remember one of Steven, the electrical engineer, the guy who taught me about DST, was there, and we were I was buying him a cup of coffee, and the last card I had with money on it was declined. was 2.5 years ago. I was just like, he's like, want me to buy you coffee? And I was like, yeah, man, thank you. To go from that to now what we have is the largest for-profit project, I think, ever coming out of Techstars ever. But we also have photos of us sleeping on the floor, sleeping bags. Even today, like when we, as our company started to scale and grow, nobody on the leadership team's taken raises. So we're still in that kind of like, hey, do you guys want to carpool later kind of stage. Facebook Messenger, you familiar? You guys know Facebook? So when they first came out with Messenger, I thought it would be a fun thing. So now, if here's a good way to gauge whether or not you really, really love what you're doing. It's super easy. In your hobby time, does someone think you're working? So that is to say, I love building things. It's one of many passions of mine. But when I'm building something on a computer, nobody can tell, is this for work? Is this for fun? It's all the same tools. And so what I've learned is that to be very clear with people when they see me, why, dude, it's like 8 p.m., why are you working? I'm like, oh, no. This is a hobby project. It just so happens it's in the same programming language, solving the same problems with the same people. But this is absolutely for fun. And this was an example. It's like, okay, I'm just looking for something to do at night to keep my mind busy. So Becca would watch Netflix. I would go and I'd play with Facebook Messenger. We ended up being the first company on the planet to build a booking system through Facebook Messenger. And no joke, the blog post I wrote about it, I think is the #1 visited page on the Spruce website, which is a men's fashion boutique website. We have a tech and retail blog that I used to do. Should get back to that. And that page is our #1 traffic source. People wanting to also build Facebook Messenger booking systems. And this is how ours turned out. Now remember, this is like 2 years ago when like Facebook first released their APIs.
Do you remember the old ways of rocking it? Laying the bar down, the microphone cocking it, telling it, spelling it out, and block capitals, cardboard boxing it, back battling like churches with the roof off, searching for purchases. We play fighting roof off, streets ain't safe. Television talking trash, traveling horseback, lucky stars talking cash, pocket changes, rocking ravens, seeking the heat. Straight rustling and hustling, freaking the beat. Sharp circling, working these buzzing like cell phones, hell knows, guess y'all at assholes and elbows. Customized hot rod, fire your shit face. Funny baby, shout, money can't fight good taste. Heads popping off, doing all gas mad.
So built this just to keep my brain busy at night. And it was funny because my wife turned to me and she's like, she can't tell the difference between hobby work and actual work. She's like, well, if you're working right now, why don't you work on this backlog? Like, no, this is for fun. We get so many bookings through this that she actually came and apologized to me. She's like, I'm sorry I ever questioned Facebook Messenger. I'm like, but you didn't. It was supposed to be for fun, and it wasn't supposed to actually work and become like our #2 booking method. Like, that was not supposed to happen. And what's super interesting about Facebook is in the admin app and the Pages app, I can watch you talk to SpruceBot. And so when we were in Techstars, it's funny. The thing about robots is today, anything you design that's automated has to be what we call happy path. That means it's got to do one thing, well, and when you break from that, it's got to stop and be like, hey, well, I wasn't designed to do this. Do you want to bring humans in? Because like, you don't have a lot of patience when it comes to robots. If you've ever called a bank or you've ever called a directory or a company that has a directory service for like a phone directory and dealt with the press 1 and say this, and my password is 5. Like, it's terrible, and you get so fed up. So what we did is we made sure every time you broke from Happy Path, SpruceBot would be like, yo, I am a dumb robot. I have no idea what you're trying to tell me right now. When you press this button, I can get a human way better at this than I am. And so anytime someone breaks from Happy Path, SpruceBot throws his hands up, says, I don't think I can help you. Do you want me to ping a human? They hit a button, we get a Slack notification, tap a link, and then jump in and provide support. And so one time I'm watching a conversation going, and this guy's like in this loop with SpruceBot. And I'm like, okay, like, this is not good. Like, you don't want anybody to be stuck in a loop when trying to book an appointment. And so I was tweeting at the time. So I think I went like, that moment you have to jump in and help your robot because he's not good at his job. #humans taking robot jobs. And then I went in and I was like, hey man, you can tell SpruceBot to shut up and he'll be like, fine, and he'll go away, and then you can have like a human to human conversation. So we're talking and he's like, no. I'm in Canada. I just wanted to play with your bot. All right, cool. So we unshut up SpruceBot, and I went back to Twitter and I was like, that moment you thought you were helping a human, or the time you thought you were helping your robot, but what's actually happening is you were interrupting a conversation he was having with someone else. #my robot's cooler than I am. And it's super interesting to go and just watch people. And here's something also interesting. He tells knock-knock jokes. Do you know when people ask for a knock-knock joke? After they book their first appointment, 9 times out of 10. So what we've learned is when someone decides they want to book an appointment, get out of their way and let them book as fast as possible, because you got that thing in your brain. It's like, I just got this task, I got to get this done, I don't want to be distracted. And then when they're done, boom, tell me a joke. And they're dad jokes, and they're awesome, except if you don't like dad jokes. And you can tell who doesn't by how people respond, are either, oh my God, I love you, SpruceBot, and he'll be like, yay, awesome, or like, that was fucking lame, and he goes, I don't understand what you said. Do you want me to call a human? So it's really interesting to watch people's behaviors around tasks. And when a task is set, get out of their way, empower and support them any way you can, and then be there at the other end of the task. Oh, okay. So the tour, and if you guys couldn't tell, I just threw things in here and the story flows from the slide. I don't have like a format here. So as I was saying, we give tours of the shop where you can actually see this stuff work, watch the buttons and the live displays and everything kind of happening and going, and you can we can walk through it and you can see how guests are impacted by it. It's an awesome experience. What's super interesting is since Techstars, and now that all this stuff is starting to catch wind, right? We've got big companies from all over the country flying very important people out to come do the tour. And so we started thinking, and it got really bad or good depending on how much of a distraction a tour was at the time. We ended up doing a lot for a period of time as we're kind of working on recording our next kind of relationship. And so we thought, okay, how can we scale tours? How can we make it so I don't have to be there anymore? That we can say, go do the tour, and when you're done, I'll be there, or we'll sync up at a coffee shop, or whatever it is. So we built this proof of concept. It's me pointing out the game station table. Yeah. So the idea was, and we just had to pause it now because we haven't done a tour in a while, is that you would come to the shop, you download the app, put on your headphones, and we guide you through a tour of all the technology with little versions, little mini-me's around where each one of the pieces of tech was. And then what we did is we Googled After Effects Star Wars hologram effect from like right out of R2-D2. And we've got like, we're just cued, but our idea is there'd be hollow pucks that we'd place around, and then when you got to a certain area, it would go and like hologram out and then give like the explanation of what's going on. I was actually just invited to speak to a group of museums in San Diego. I'm gonna show them this for sure. Like, this is the AR and tour-based experiences. It's like, imagine even at the zoo, being able to like, this animal, this and that. And I'm not a big fan of animals unless I'm eating them, so I'm not good at zoos, but. Oh, okay. So I think the last thing here is a video that we made for our enterprise partner right now. So here's how it kind of went down. We get out of Techstars, the investors are like, are calling, asking about the company, and I'm learning how to pitch. Like, I'm still not great at it. And I get a phone call from a gentleman named John Nordmark. Now, have you guys seen the e-bags building on I-25? So he was the founder of eBags. They pioneered like A/B testing on the web like 15 years ago. It's incredible. And then, well, he's now running a company called Iterate, and their job is to connect startups with enterprises. An enterprise being like tier 1 enterprise, like hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Like, and the reason is these big companies can't innovate. And it's super interesting. In fact, these big companies can do nothing small. So picture what that means. No MVPs, no tests, no tinkering, no playing, no learning. These companies, all these big tier 1s, are optimized for scale. So they can do something 1,000 times amazingly. They can't do something once. And it's the most interesting thing ever. Well, so we get a call from John Nordmark, and he's like, hey man, I'm talking to this company, Ulta Beauty. And I didn't know the company at the time, so I'm Googling like Aldo, Ultra, like no idea who this company is. And he's like, they saw your booking system, and they really like to talk to you. And I had just gotten out of Techstars. Techstars was like an MBA crash course, but in the world of startups. So they taught me kind of how to pitch. So I was like ready for this call, right? I'm like, oh, that's cool, cool. I'm glad they liked our booking system. But what we have is an entire guest experience platform. These are words that I learned during the program. And he's like, whoa. And I was like, damn right, whoa. He's like, all right, let's get a call together. So at the time, we're working in the basement of Spruce. Physically in the basement, we have a shop vac. So when the barbers sweep up hair, they don't have to bend over, they just sweep it up, flip the little foot lever. The shop vac's like 15 feet away in the basement. So we get on a phone call with a Fortune 500 retailer, the SVPs and VPs of the company, right below the executive level. And we start off the meeting and I go, I just want you guys to know, if it sounds like a jumbo jet is landing, it's because of the vacuum. And if that happens, we're just gonna hang out for like, so that gets very uncomfortable. So we start the presentation, we do a go-to-meeting, and I mean, we have normally in this situation, a startup's gonna have a deck, like a PowerPoint presentation with why you wanna use this, and I'm like, I don't have any of that shit. I'm just gonna screen share my phone, and we're just gonna go, and I'm gonna show you everything. So we start going through and start showing them everything, and the one warning I got was, these are Midwestern folk, watch your language. I'm like, whatever, you don't know me. And so it was funny, the one time I let my language slip was we built a referral program. So Techstars introduced us to amazing people. We knew a guy who ran advertising at LinkedIn. And we were talking about him, about how to do, how to get more people engaged in our platform or in the shop itself specifically. And he said, well, do Uber style give 5, get 5. Share a link, give 5, get 5. And we did it. This is one of those things where there's like, click this link to share it, and you tap it once. And I found a way on iOS and Android, if you tap the field once, it selects everything, pulls up the copy context menu. So you just have to hit copy. And it was funny because the one time I let my language slip was talking about that feature. And I go, and all you have to do is tap once. Look at how it auto-selects it right there for the copy. None of that bullshit double tap nonsense. I am so sorry. And they were like, no, keep going. So, like 30 seconds. Hold on. We got like screen share. Wait. Okay, so what we were talking about was, well, about 2/3 through the meeting, we start getting LinkedIn requests from all these people we're on the phone with. And I was like, oh my God, it was super exciting. And then I took the laptop with the video script, ran upstairs and started showing them all the IoT. I'm like, there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. Get a call 15 minutes later from John Nordmark again, who's like, they're coming out. Sweet, who's coming out? Chief Information Officer, Chief of Store Operations, so 2 of the highest execs at the company, and then their entourage. All right, cool. So what did we do? Rented out a theater. We rented out the Oriental Theater right next to the shop. And when we demoed to the executives, we had my phone airplayed onto a 20-foot theater screen where one of our friends who does catering catered in food. And we demoed all the platform, we demoed all the software, then we took them into Spruce, showed them everything, and by the time, so big companies like this do what's called an RFP, a request for proposal. And they sent out a 6,000-word document that's like, here's what we need. Those are scary documents, because and mostly because they don't know what they need, which makes it very hard. Well, they were in the RFP process for a new booking system, which is how this whole thing started, They were off next to go meet Mind Body. You're familiar with Mind Body? If you've ever done anything in rock climbing or yoga or whatever, Mind Body's like the thing. If you've ever gone somewhere where there's physical activity and filled out 15 goddamn forms, that's Mind Body. And so it was interesting, because after we shared and gave them everything, their director of innovation looks at the chief of store operations and goes, do we even have to go see Mind Body? Like, can we just like be done with the search and count it? And they're like, oh, we kind of have to go. Well, it turns out when they got out there, their account manager showed up 30 minutes late wearing his CrossFit gear, because that's the company culture they have. We rented out a theater, catered in food, had a full morning sun up to sundown experience planned for these people while they were in town. And Mind Body couldn't even show up to the meeting on time. Very easy to tell where that went. So now we get a call from them again. Guys, they love it. I'm like, cool, can we get started? No, they want you to fly out there now. Who do we have to meet now? The rest of the executive team. So I don't know if you ever get a chance to Google Mary Dillon right now, her and her team. It's like, I don't know let me just give you some cool, really fucking cool stuff about Ulta. Like, executive team, 80-90% women-led. Retail, killing it in the market, beating almost every other retailer on the planet right now in beauty. This crew is amazing. And so we fly out. It's Mary Dillon, the CEO, every executive, big horseshoe table. You don't have a presentation, don't have notes. It's just like a phone, an Apple TV, and a screen, and an hour and a half. So we just said, go. And for an hour and a half, I took them through everything. I mean, the stuff I'm showing here, right, is maybe a fourth, maybe a quarter of the things that I could just keep going and go. So I just went through everything. And it took about 2 hours. By the time we were done, we got a round of applause. Like, software company pitching software, get a round of applause from the people we're pitching to, which is a weird, never before anybody heard of kind of thing. And Mary Dillon looks at me and she goes, and at this point it's me, Ryan, and Randy, so 2 co-founders. One thing I learned too, if you're gonna start a venture, find co-founders. Someone to not eat with you, someone to not sleep with you, someone to be stressed as hell with you. It makes a huge difference. Now, the 2 co-founders that I found are polar opposites of each other and me. So the way that it was described by Ulta is I'm the idealist, Randy's the realist, and Ryan is the skeptic. Which means I'm talking about the way it should be, Randy's talking about the way things actually are, and Ryan's the one calling us both out for things that are gonna blow up in our face. And it's an amazing partnership. But at the time, it's just the 3 of us. So it's me, horseshoe table, every executive, Mary there, her team. I think Ryan and Randy are here. We go through the pitch. It's not even a pitch. I just go through the demo, get a round of applause, and Mary Dillon looks at me and she goes, now keep in mind, Randy's sleeping on the floor. None of us, I haven't been paid in 1.5 years, 2 years. We're living off credit cards. My credit card's getting declined. I'm not like getting food, getting declined. My wife and I ended up having to move into her parents' basement for a year because we also decided to have a kid. So like Becca's got a company, I've got a company, we got a kid. So it's like the sitcom of our lives is 2 companies and a baby. It's way better on reruns because living it real time is not fun. So I'm in front of now, right? We're at the end now. It's just like, I don't know what we're gonna do. We got to get this company started. And Mary Dillon looks at me and she goes, this is amazing. We want this at Ulta. I want this at Ulta. What is it going to take? I was like, oh shit, I prepped for this. 2 things. 1, we're a product company, which means we're not going to build what you want. We're going to build what you need. It means we're not going to take orders, and we're not a services company. We have an idea and an opinion about where retail is going, and we want to go there, and we want you to come with. She's like, deal. What else? I said, I need 2 years runway. Because I got these 2 that haven't been paid. I haven't been paid. And I got a whole bunch of people at their old job ready to quit their job. And I promised them I'm not going to let them do it until I can commit to them 2 years of runway. And that means I need the money in the bank. Not on contract, not on your word, not on signing of a check. When I see the zeros in the bank account, I will tell them they can quit their jobs. Because I have done that before. Had people dive onto something before it was adequately funded. That's embarrassing. If you want to talk about a way to lose credibility fast, that would be a good way to do it. She says, deal. Took about 9 months of negotiating. 8 or 9 months of negotiating. It sucked. What we ended up with was a deal that is funding our company until 2020. with no equity. We've got the full team that we need, got the full funding that we need, and we're actually flying out next weekend to release the first major release into an Ulta store in Chicago that keeps getting pushed back because we made a mistake. We made a mistake is that we thought, well, we're going to be a software company, we're going to be a SaaS, software as a service company. There are certain business models that are compatible with that. One business model that is not compatible with that is us building shit for you. Not going to happen. We have to build our stuff. Completely regret that decision. Because what it turns out is a company who can do nothing small can still do nothing small. Which means in the last month, we've taken almost everything off their plate and built it ourselves. Which then we're going to go, we went to their executives essentially, just said, hey, it's not going to, we got to change how this is working, it's not getting done. We'll help, we'll get our hands dirty on your stuff. And then on the other side, we got to figure out how to make this right. So we're right now, the team's back at the office. That's what all those, except the swamp cooler is an issue. Those dings are about us helping support their internal IT team deploy, which has been a nightmare. But the big thing was, so now picture this, and this is, and I screwed up in a lot of stuff, but really bad I screwed up in that when we were working on the price for this, when we were working on estimating things out, you guys are creators, makers, right? You, whether it's digital artifacts or analog, physical artifacts, you guys create things. What I forgot to estimate in was building the company. So I'm picturing like, okay, I know what needs to get built. I built it before. I know all this tech. This is easy, easy. Holy crap. Did it turn out that building technology was not the problem that we were trying to solve? It was building a company. So I spent the first year trying to build a company. It did not go well because I have no experience doing that. So what we ended up doing is acquiring a company. And we acquired a development company, a design and development company, coincidentally called Barbershop. So what's super interesting is that in the code there are references to barbershop things, and I'm just going to tell everybody it was on purpose. Not that coincidentally the company that we were working with was called Barbershop and put barber things in their code. So it worked out. It could not have probably planned it better. So as we're building this company, it turns out, well, the company is very, very tough. We share a lot of things that we do visually, photos or video. And so what we would do is every time we'd hit a milestone, we'd film the software in action. So you could see it working and see the experience it was creating. But we'd always film it in Spruce. Then that started to make Ulta antsy after about 6 to 8 months. They're like, when are we going to see shit in Ulta? And I'm like, well, whenever your IT people get their poop in a group. Which I can't give that answer. I can now, but I couldn't at the time. Politics are a weird thing. So what we did is we set up a shoot in an Ulta. We flew out. So Ulta's trying to recruit more stylists, and the way that they're doing it is they're just going and recruiting like the top most famous influencers in the stylist market. It's super brilliant. So we flew 2 kind of big hitters in the industry out to play a part in it. So this video was a video that was played in the last status update to Mary Dillon and her execs. And I hope it's the video, or I just told you all that for nothing. Yeah.
That should do it.
We also let the engineers who build things play a part in the videos. So, one take, if you noticed. So, no cuts, start to finish, choreographing human beings and beta technology. So, you can imagine it was like 2.5 hours of just the same take over and over, making sure people were jumping at the right time, hopping at the right time, crossing frame at the right time, and also that the software loaded the right screens. And we'd get to the very end, and that's always my hand, because I'm the most familiar with the product. And so there will be times where we go through all the hard, complicated choreography, and I miss a button. We're like, cut! Start it over. Come on, dude, tap the right button. Like, super tough to do, but that was kind of that's a teaser or preview of the experience we want to create inside of Alta using the platform. Other than that, I think I am 9.5 minutes over, so I got to get out of here. But if we have time for some questions and anything or ideas, or someone wants to throw something out.
Do you definitely have time for some questions? Data science, I don't know. I'm not your teacher. What you need to do?
Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
I'm curious, what was that tipping point like for you when you had this concept of what Spruce could be, and you decided, like, let's pull the trigger and get this ball rolling?
Awesome question. Super awesome question. Because there was no point. There was no tip. Nothing works like it does in the movies or in stories, which is disappointing because those are the only things I know. So what happened is during Techstars, like, they hook you up with a bunch of mentors to kind of advise and guide, right? And so at the time we were trying to open more Spruce, the physical retailer. And so we went and met physical retail owners all throughout Minneapolis, from like the tops to the bottoms, everybody throughout Target down to like we walked in. I can walk into any boutique now, find my way right to the owner and like, tell me, like, I own a boutique, you own a boutique. On a scale from 1 to 1 to kill yourself, how do you feel right now? And well, so that wasn't originally, that joke wouldn't have made sense, except that's kind of how it is. And so by the time we would go and we would talk to someone, we would show them everything, and we'd talk, and they'd be like, wow, this is really cool, but like, I want to use that technology. Can I use that technology? And we're like, no. Well, then we did the net referral score, the equivalent of. So now picture this, it's me, Ryan, Becca, we're on the phone over and over the same conversation. Guys, should we start a technology company? Guys, should we start a technology company? And so maybe there was kind of a tipping point where we said, okay, let's go ask every one of our mentors, would they do it again? That would answer it, right? Would you do this again if you had the choice? None of them said yes. Every single one of them said no. And if I had the technology opportunity you had, I'd take it. And these are people who run retailers, some successful, some not as much, but like from their own mouth, like, I would not do it again. And if I had an opportunity to get into tech, which is much more scalable, I would have done it. And at the time, it was very deflating. It's very disappointing for us to be like, well, this is like what we wanted to do, and people doing it are like, when does that ever happen? You're like, someone's like, oh, that looks like fun. Yeah, come on, try it. When is it ever like, that looks like fun? No, not fun. Stay away. I wouldn't have done it if I'd have thought about it. It's like, yeah. So it was 2/3 through the program. Now, here's what's interesting is at the end of the program, they do demo day. And the idea with demo day is to share all your progress. And then there's investors in the audience. So every company was like, yeah, well, we got into this many stores, and we signed up this many users, and we upped our MRR by monthly recurring revenue by X amount. And I got up and was like, so we started as one company, and now we're 2 companies. And here's how the craziness went down. And I just told the story about how we went, asked for feedback, got ideas, and eventually everyone was just like, no, we want to use your tech. So I was like, fine. So what was interesting is we didn't file with the Secretary of State yet. So there was really no company. I just said, we're going to start a new company. And then we got so here's the idea with funding too, is before you have an idea, is there a working marker here? Before you have an idea, like it would be called you can't see this, can you? Pre-seed. So a pre-seed is you got an idea. A seed round is like you got something built and you kind of want to go find product market fit. So you're going to get some money to tweak it. You're not going to grow the company. You're just going to find your alignment with the market. And then you get into like a series A, which is we got the product, we know what we're doing, we're gonna hire a bunch of salespeople, let's take over the world. Well, so there's the idea of priced rounds. A priced round is pretty much saying, I'll give you this amount of money, and because your company is worth X amount, I'll get this percentage. How do you price a company that doesn't have a product yet? It's impossible. So what they do is a debt convertible note, which means they're gonna lend us money as a loan, and after 3 years, you either pay back the loan, or X, whatever the term is, you either pay back the loan, or it converts to equity at the current valuation with a $3 million cap, which means they can't take your company over, it's capped. And what was super interesting is because we were splitting into 2 companies was one problem. And then second problem, well, actually that was the problem. Because we were splitting into 2 companies, we had Techstars that invested in my wife's business. But all the investors in my wife's business want the technology. And so we started to move them over to the technology, and then they go, no, we want some of your wife's business too. And this turned into like a 6-month fight with a lot of people about, wait a second. And then so what we ended up having to do is take a company that didn't exist and didn't have a product, move it up a round and do a full priced round as if we had everything we needed. It was the only way we could get it to work. It was funny because I was talking to our lawyer and he's like, well, you could go do a priced round. And he's like, and I was like, okay, yeah, we'll go do that. And he's like, but no one's going to agree to that. Like, this is not how this works. Like, you have to have a product. And I was like, no, I'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. He's like, how? And I was like, dude, I'm an entrepreneur. I am bred to be way too optimistic. I'll figure this out. And it turns out, so not only did we get the round more or less filled before we filed with the company, but we bumped it up a stage and did a seed round, priced round with a company that was just a shell, and convinced all the investors to do it. And so we went from a no company to a $3 million company in like one signature, which was awesome for me who's got a bunch of shares. But you start to learn the difference between value and money and value on paper. Yeah, and value on paper. So I was trying to be sneaky once. Not sneaky, I just thought I could do it. Where we wanted to expand Spruce, and I'm like, I got like millions of shares in this company that are now worth something. I want to use that as collateral for my loan. So if we don't pay back the loan, the bank just takes the equity. And the lady at the bank was like, what? Nobody wants your equity. I'm like, but I've proven like at least 4 people do. And she's like, no. If it was like a publicly traded stock, I could use it as collateral for loans, but like I can't do anything now. So I'm worth several $1 million on paper and have to have people buy lunch for me. Like, so hopefully this is worth it. It feels like it is, but we're not there yet. And until we get out into store in Ulta, which is planned for this weekend, we're still a pre-revenue, pre-product company, which is driving me nuts. So yeah, long-winded answer to your question. It was a good question though.
What's sort of driving the decisions that you make in terms of what you want to try next? Or what you want to do? Is it just watching and seeing where the inklings bubble?
Just thinking about pulling up the doc we use. So it's changed. At first, it was whatever the F I wanted. That was easy, right? Just sit, watch, build, test, play. Now that the team is growing, it's gotten to be a little more operationalized. So what we're actually going to present in the next few weeks, next week or two, is our product consideration criteria, our feature consideration criteria. So we've created like 15 questions, and you have to hit a minimum score. And if you hit that minimum score for your new awesome idea, we'll consider it. And then it gets worked into whatever else is happening now. But because we're pre-revenue, revenue really will decide what's next. So what'll happen is we're getting ready to answer an RFP. So here's super interesting. We're getting ready to answer our next RFP. So Ulta's like one of the biggest groups in the industry, 1,000+ locations. The next largest place, we're going after them now too. But they have, it's interesting, they have a requirement for a piece of technology that we don't offer, the point of sale. I think in the next 5 years, point of sale is going to go away. And everyone's going to be cashierless checkout. I didn't show you guys handshake checkout, but we already do it at the shop. You grab a pair of pants, put them on the dressing room, leave the tag, walk out, get a text message receipt. Feels like Amazon. From the teammate perspective, they still go and check you out, but what's cool is it doesn't require any real training. So now that we're going after this next deal, the big gap in our offering, the point of sale, we went and found the best point of sale person in the market, and now we're doing a joined effort with them to land this RFP. And what that'll mean is the next set of features will probably be geared around integrating with this point of sale. So we can have what we would call an end-to-end experience from the moment you book to pay and leave, follow up and return. So yeah, potential revenue is gonna be, I guess you could say sales is driving it right now. Until we make money, and then I can tell people no. But we're not close to that yet, so. Anything else?
Where do you find like your source of creativity and like fresh ideas?
Besides getting stoned? No, sounds funny. It's great. Works great for me. What I found really is just like there are just brains that are wired for it. So like no matter where I find myself in whatever work stream, whatever we're doing, I'm the one that's coming up with the out of the box or the crazy ideas, which means when it comes to a lot of practical things, I'm not useful. So what it's coming down to is knowing where my strengths are, where the strengths of the team are, and then kind of the part that I'm owning is like doing things ways people have never thought of before. But then like actually tracking the day-to-day or making sure that which is all equally important stuff, I have to have help for that. So, and accept the fact that it seems like you're either wired for it or you're not. I don't have any, I guess the one tip I would say, if you are wired for it, put yourself in a very, very trapped situation and you will come up with amazing things. Like we could have thought for 2 years about whether we could pull off this Alta deal. It's huge. It's the biggest guest-facing initiative in the company's history. They separately asked us to open up our seed round so they could invest in us as a separate thing. First time, 25 years publicly traded, they've ever invested in anybody ever. We got down to the contract signing, and they changed. The people we're working with on the contract level were just throwing stuff in. So I was like, I don't feel good about this at all. So called every one of our investors, every one of our advisors, and said, look, Alta's changing the requirements here a lot. Every day we're getting new things back. We know who it was that was doing it. He's not there anymore, but still, like, we're getting ready to sign a $5 million deal to launch our company, and like, I'm getting back a contract that changes daily. That's really scary. So I called every advisor, every mentor, and I explained the situation. I said, what do you think I should do? And they go, Tay, we know you. Sign it, and you'll figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, I probably will. We signed it. About 6 months ago, we went and reworked the whole contract. So it's like, if you have the type of brain that can handle that, step in first, ask questions later. I do not recommend that for everybody, as I've given that advice to people who don't do well or are not creative and they just crumble. So for me, I say desperation breeds innovation. I like biting off more than I can chew and then end up on the other side of it with things that nobody ever predicted. So that's the best I can give.
How's that dynamic work with your co-founders? Like, how do you keep us a stable relationship, knowing that you're all so different?
Yeah, so check this. Some things I wish some people would have told me. And it's a lot about understanding who you are on a relationship level. So here's what I mean. I've got this weird thing where it's like really tough for me to respect you until I've seen that you've done something that you're impressed with yourself. You know, like my wife describes it as like, you nerd out about people nerding out. Like, yeah, I kind of do. Like, I don't care what you're into, but until I see that you're into something, like I just have trouble connecting. And then once I find what it is, it's like, yeah, cool. And so what that means is my best relationships are really predicated around objectives. Like, we're going to be friends and we're going to hang out, but like when we do the best is when we're focused here. And so both co-founders, one of them, Ryan, I've worked with a decade. So it was like a no-brainer. I say if I were a NASCAR driver, he would be the pit crew. In fact, he's now head of pit crew, which literally means does whatever needs to get done to get it done. The other co-founder, it was the first time I'd ever been friends with someone before I worked with someone. But I hadn't been friends, like we'd been friends, but I hadn't been in contact with him for like almost a decade. But what was happening is we were starting to form this company and I was like, okay, my wife and I are gonna have a baby. That's gonna mean that I am out for like going and schmoozing, going to events and balls and doing all that and going out and shaking hands. And so I thought like, who's the best person in my life who could do that? And it ended up being Randy, who was living in Europe at the time. And so for Ryan, I literally sent him the files from the Secretary of State and just said sign. And his version of the story was that he was eating dinner with his family, gets a text, walks away, comes back, and goes, all right, well, I guess I'm starting a company with Tay. For Randy, he came out, flew from Europe, did a 30-day trial. Like, we were just like, how can we suss out if this is going to work or not? And within 2 weeks, we had been so bombarded with investors and meetings, he's just like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm in. But we wanted to do the face-to-face for a little bit of time just to see if we would connect. And then one thing I'm learning too is like, you want to have personal relationships with people, but it's really hard to work with someone and have a personal relationship with them that's casual, I guess I'll say. Because we push hard, and it's really hard to push your friends. They say don't work with friends and family, and it turns out that it's not necessarily because you're going to fight, it's because you won't hold each other accountable in the same way. And then you fight, and the fight comes later. So if you are comfortable holding your friends accountable in ways that make you extremely uncomfortable, you can work with friends all day long. But really, it helped me I worked with everybody first, and then developed friendship. And that has meant that we're compatible through and through. And what's interesting is having 3 people. There's a book called The Triad that talks about it. I haven't read it, but I've heard that it is like a mirror of our situation. And then every time I hear it, I'm like, I should read that book. But it talks about the reason why you do 3 is the thought would be like, oh, to tie-break vote. You don't lead a company by voting. That's just not how it works. You lead by the best idea. And it's sometimes pretty obvious what the best idea is. You need a third person to be a mediator. So when you're fighting, they can go, like Randy's interrupted me and Ryan going at each other and be like, I think you guys are talking about 2 topics. And we'll be like, oh yeah, we are. That's why we're not connecting. I'm yelling about this, he's yelling about that, but we're yelling on the same phone call and not getting anywhere. So to have a third person as a mediator, this is why it's weird that like marriage is supposed to work. Like without him, I guess this way you go find a mediator is like just have one person who can see your side, see their side, and translate has been crucial. And now I won't do it any other way. 3 people minimum at any company I start.
As you scale, like, what are your goals for Spruce? You working toward continuing to work with other companies like Alta, or a possible acquisition?
That's a tough one. So short term, if we land the next deal we're trying to land, we will have in our first year or 2 gotten the top people in the beauty market. I will take that to some investors and go, give me some money, pick a market, I'll hit the next one. Because the way we got that was like, yeah, just working our way. And also we've got advisors and everything. So the next stage for our company is to land this next deal, which will double our store count, double our MRR. In parallel, I'm trying to hire like senior level executives, like experienced, which is very hard. This is very hard because like, for instance, one guy that I was getting ready to talk to before I even got the first meeting got snagged to go be the CEO of some private equity backed company. Like these people are like, I'm not the only one fighting for him, but I'm the only one without money fighting for him. So what my trick is to get him on the phone. I get him on the phone one time, then we've got a shot. And as a perfect example, our next hire will be in sales. And what we've done is we've got our sights set on an individual named, I forgot what his name is. It'll come back. Paul. His name's Paul. So he was the CEO of one of our competitors for 8 years in the US that we're replacing at Ulta. So one of our targets is let's replace everybody who's using this old system. Well, so he was the CEO of that company in the US, kind of brought it to fruition there, and then he did some other things, and then he was the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Pulp Riot, which is a coloring formula and dye company, consumer company, that just got acquired by L'Oreal. So like, essentially we went and asked about him, and everybody was like, yeah, the entire beauty industry is waiting to see what this guy does. I got the verbal commitment on the phone that he's going to come do a 30-day trial with us on site in 3 months when he's done merging L'Oreal and the company that he sold to see if he can work with us. If we can get that guy, not only will we've gotten the 2 largest beauty players in the beauty, but we would have gotten the most prominent, most connected executive in the industry. That's our strategy right now. And it just takes that one, you get you on the phone one time, I can tell this story, and you're gonna go, holy shit, let me see more. And then we got a whole system down to like hook people in. So he's gonna come out and trial with us in the next few months once he's done with the engagement with L'Oreal. And then I'm currently talking with, is just anybody. You've got to have startup experience. I'd love it if you built a startup and sold it. So one of our advisors has built a startup and a SaaS company, sold it over like 10 years. So he had actually 8 co-founders. He's like, hey, don't have more than like 3 co-founders ever. He had 8, and they did rule by committee. And the thing about rule by committee is it's always arbitrary, because it's not one vision guiding, it's a bunch of voices in a room, and then you might get someone who just made a good point or is on fire today, and now you're gonna go do this other thing, and it's gonna conflict with decisions you made before. So his big thing is have minimum amount of co-founders. So yeah, right now it's land the next deal, up the experience level of the team to people who built, sold, managed companies, which, yeah, figuring out how to hook them, get them to take a pay cut. That's the tough part.
So your priority right now is beauty retail?
Yes, so that's an awesome question too. The platform that we built, so picture this. This platform uses skills like an Alexa. Skills not only make the platform stronger, skills make each other stronger. So what happens is, like, I have the VIP alert skill, alerting me when VIPs, and it lets me configure who's a VIP and all that, but also the little black book skill lets me take notes. And it reminds me when you leave to take a note before I forget. And then, if the VIP alert skill is on and I pin a note, the pin note gets attached to the VIP alert. So you saw in that video that was Cecil has arrived, Nick Stenson's cousin from Hawaii. So these skills get to come together and work together. And it makes it super awesome. So picture this. Picture I walk into a coffee shop, I sit down, the barista gets a VIP alert, little black book note, iced Americano, large, same thing every time. I go sit down, drink comes out, set. I get a text message receipt because they have handshake checkout. We can, for $50 a month, top Starbucks at every corner shop cafe right now today. We do not have the operational power to do it. We do not have the finances to execute on it. So what I tell the team is, remember when Amazon just sold books? Yeah, neither do I. But there was a period of time where Amazon just sold books. This is our books period. We're in beauty right now. It's just temporary. We're gonna go get the 2 biggest dogs in the market. We're gonna go get the best executives in the market. We're gonna have a beauty section, and then we're gonna go crush beauty. And then when the time is right and we have the right amount of revenue increasing at the right clip, we're gonna go raise a Series A, and we're gonna say, do we wanna hit restaurants next, cafes next, bars next, whatever. But it's beauty first. It's really easy too with Spruce. If you ever go in, we have a wall of awards for the stuff. It's just like, we have a name. So I can go in and someone will listen to me. As soon as I think we execute on beauty and we roll out for Ulta and the other places that we're talking to, I think I'll have enough credibility to walk into any market. But today, no one will listen to me in the bar and restaurant scene. Yeah.
Have you followed a similar strategy for finding advisors and mentorship? Has it just been kind of along the way?
So, getting lucky, really. So, have you used LinkedIn? Yeah. You have 500 connections? Yeah, just go. Just go connect. What I do is I've got connections in everything I think I want to do today, tomorrow, and in the future. So you saw we do video for a lot of our stuff. I'm connected with people at Lucasfilms, Paramount Pictures, who make films. So when we're ready for the next huge production, I can tap people way out of our league. So I went in and I just connected with people in retail, people in tech, people in film, people in television, people in PR, people, and then I see a notice 2 days ago that says from a guy who works at Box, and he's like their VP of community or something, community outreach. And he goes, I've got a guy who's built and sold software companies, who does sales. Does anybody have an opening? And I commented and said, does he have startup experience? 2 days ago, I get a phone call. We're on the phone. He's coming out to Denver. We're going to see if we're a match. It's like LinkedIn is the place. It's where everything and the information is moving. And if you can tap into it, the thing is that never seems to work is a DM to somebody, or like an in mail or whatever. Like, it's mostly comment on something or like something or visit someone's profile. And like, I just connected to a guy who, so Insider Trends, I also make friends with all the journalists that ever write about us. It turns out you need relationships with them too. But what's cool is because I'm friends with the journalists, when they write an article about someone else, that someone else shares the article. So a gentleman who is in retail innovation had an article written about him and shared it, and mentioned Kate Trotter, who's the editor-in-chief, and I'm connected with her, and I was like, oh, Kate's writing about this guy. Then like, this is a guy I need to know. I went, I connected to him, and just this morning he messaged me back. He's like, hey, thanks for the connect. Is there anything I can do? And I was like, nope, just saw your experience. Seems like we have an alignment. And he's like, yeah, cool, let me know if I can ever help you. And maybe someday if I'm in a city he's in, I'll message him, ask him out for a coffee or a beer, and like pick his brain, and maybe he'll come work for us, or maybe I'll never talk to him again. But like, I always at least try to set up one meeting with anybody who's got experience in what I'm trying to do, who I think is better than me, which is a lot. So I meet with a lot of people.
What did that look like?
Very well, so there's steps to it for me. Step one, what I want to get out of the way is make sure they're bought into me and Spruce. So tell them a quick version of the story, get them all ramped up. If it excites them, then I let them, then they talk about what they're doing, what they're looking for, and then I get out, and Randy comes in, or Corbin comes in, and starts actually vetting. Because I have happy ears. I'm like, oh no, he said he could do it, let's go, we're good. I'm like, Tay, does he have any qualifications? Yeah, he's alive, and he's working hard. So like, as soon as I feel like we've got a good thing, I'll bring in other people to like, hey, tell me why I shouldn't work with this person. And so we're there on a few people right now, just vetting them out. But at first, it's full-on casual. I'll meet you at a coffee shop, let's talk, what do you do, what do I do? And then it goes from there, and right now us Spruce have got several mentors ready for when what they want is an advisor agreement. So you give them a certain amount of equity, they commit to a certain amount of hours, and I've only signed one of those so far. I've got a few of them queued up for when the time is right. So one of my advisors named Bill works in retail venture capital in Silicon Valley. So he's invited us to go and do a roadshow and go meet the investors before we go and try to raise, so we're on the radar. He's gonna wanna sign an advisor agreement to do those things. So as soon as we're ready, we'll sign it, we'll give him some shares, and then he'll come and show us how to raise money in Silicon Valley. Because I don't want to do that by myself. I'm seriously like anti that culture, totally. So have someone who knows it's gonna be why it works, essentially. Yeah, it's an awesome question. Yeah, get on LinkedIn, ask people for help, ask people for coffee. So far, I haven't said no to anybody. So if you can find someone who's like still getting their ass kicked, they're gonna say, yes, I'd love to meet and share stories. You get, like I say, I'm never turned down a LinkedIn a connection to invite just because I'm not cool enough yet. Might come a time where I don't have time for you. But right now, I connect with everybody. I give everybody a chance to talk, and the only time you're ever cut off is if you try to sell me something. And then I just drop you. But yeah, get on LinkedIn, get your 500 connections, and then just start checking it every day instead of Facebook. It'd be a great place to start.
One more question, then we should be.
Class? Boring. Hold on. Go, and then I'm 9 minutes late for a call with our point of sale partner.
I used to work at Trump Club.
Oh yeah, I tried them out early on, yeah.
Did they?
Well, so when we were gonna open Spruce, we were looking at that model. It's pretty cool. Nothing ever fit, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool though. But I still have a lot of friends who work there, and know the founders. My boss, John.
Do you know him personally? Yes, I would like to talk to you later. That would be awesome. And that's how it happens. Yeah, like, yeah, that would be great. Intros, just anything. Yeah, well, he's got a lot of relevant experience there. Oh, cool. Yeah, us millennials. Awesome.
Well, I just want you guys to give Taylor a big
Yeah, thank you.